The immortal John Hancock here, and today I'm talking about the Nintendo Switch library. Is it any good? I hear about this discussion all the time on the internet. You know, people going back and forth, giving their perspective. And, you know, quite frankly, there's a lot of opinions on both sides about this topic. And so I thought it'd be interesting and give you my thoughts about the Nintendo Switch library. So here we go. There's many different perspectives on the Nintendo Switch library, and it all depends on three main things: perspective, choice of games, and expectations. And I think those three things really weigh in on what you think about the Nintendo Switch. On one hand, you have a gamer that primarily plays on Nintendo products. Okay, they grew up with the GameCube, N64, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, you know, DS. They grew up with Nintendo. Nintendo as their primary gaming console, and they still primarily play on Nintendo products. I think, you know, that in itself, I think if you have that perspective, you know, I've read comments from these folks online. They absolutely adore and love the Nintendo Switch. Ironically, there's people on the other hand, there's people that grew up with other gaming products primarily, such as PlayStation, Xbox, Sega Genesis, etc., or even, you know, mostly PC. And those people look at the Switch or have the Switch as a secondary gaming device, or even Nintendo products in general. They're going to have a totally different perspective of the Nintendo Switch library. And it really depends kind of what you want and what you're expecting. Expectations are huge when it comes to Nintendo Switch library. Alright, and I'm somewhere in between. So like, I grew up with Nintendo, but I kind of lean towards I play on Nintendo products as a secondary device. I, like many other people, I have a PS4 Pro, I have an Xbox One X, and I game on both of those and the Switch. I don't game too much on a PC just because my PC is just average. The biggest thing that gets thrown around is the complaints about ports, and I definitely have an opinion about that. So ports on the Nintendo Switch have been great, okay? I can't believe how many awesome games are coming to the Switch. Now, on one hand, you have someone who primarily grew up with Nintendo and plays primarily on Nintendo products. These ports are great because they're being exposed to a lot of game franchises that have never been on Nintendo products before. Top of the list comes Diablo 3. You know, Diablo 3 was a port of an older game, and it came out this last year, and it's amazing. It was a great port. Played it. It was awesome. It's not going to be for the PC gamer that's played it for the last 5-6 years. And so those people and those gamers are going to have a perspective that, yeah, that's an old port. It's unnecessary. If you're new to a franchise, it's going to be awesome. Ports have been great, and I talked about that. Just a handful of the ports I think have been awesome. Skyrim, Doom, Diablo 3, and even Darksiders War Mastered, which was on the Wii U. It's now on the Switch, and that is kind of the challenge, is that there's been a lot of Wii U ports on the Switch. Now here's my defense of that. A lot of people didn't buy the Wii U, so you know, it's nice that these great games that were on a system that not a lot of people bought now can enjoy it because it's on a successful console. You know, the Switch blew past the sales numbers of the Wii U a long time ago. And so, you know, these great Wii U ports, you know, Captain Toad, Bayonetta 2, Donkey Kong, Tropical Freeze, and Mario Kart, as many more as well. So there's a lot of games that have been enhanced. They run better frame rate. They've added all the DLC content, etc., etc. Now, that's not included. So you have, you know, ports from older consoles, you know, 360 era, Xbox 360 era games. Then you have the Wii U ports. But then you have the huge indie explosion, and I think that's the greatest addition to the Switch library. And for me personally, as I get older, my game tastes have changed, you know. I had spring break. I had 9 days. I had 9 days off. Haha, yeah, right. And I had 9 days off to game, and really what it came down to is I was playing a lot of indie games. The indie games are the games that I could play in small, bite-sized experiences. And those are the games that I played. I recently downloaded Metagal, and that was kind of a cool like Mega Man game, and it's on some other things. But I liked it on the Switch because I took it to the beach, and I got to play that right on the beach. Here I am playing a Switch game, and I mean that's awesome. I think that's the advantage of the Switch, is even though it gets a lot of ports, you can take them on the go. You know, I'm not taking my Xbox One X on the go. I'm not taking my PS4 Pro on the go. I'm taking my Switch because, you know, I could put that in a suitcase. I could take it to a hotel, you know, play it on the hotel bed. So the indie games definitely add to the Switch library. And so, you know, Celeste, Stardew Valley, Shovel Knight, Steamroll Dig 2, Dead Cells, Undertale, Cuphead, Towerfall, Binding of Isaac, Cave Story. I mean, that's just a handful of the hundreds of games that have came, just indie games, on the Switch. I love that they don't take up a lot of space. I like that they're cheap. You know, this is another cool thing about the Switch, is that it doesn't have these dry spells that previous Nintendo consoles have. I think if you haven't been solely watching Nintendo products in the last 20 years, I mean, I used to work at GameStop. And I used to remember the drought of the N64. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. I felt bad. People who solely had the N64 over the PlayStation, they'd come in and they'd ask for a release and be like, is there anything new? Is there anything new? The ports were barren. And Nintendo didn't have the muscle to support the N64 by itself. It shows, you know. Less than 300 titles for the Nintendo 64 in the US. And it was dry. There was months that were just rough. And so what's cool about the Switch now is that there's tons and tons of releases. Now, is there shovelware? Yes. Are there games that aren't that great? Yes. But there's games coming out every week that you can check out. And that counts for something. It counts for me. I love just going on the store and being like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. I do think the eShop is better than it ever has been. I like the fact that I can just purchase something on the eShop and there's new games coming all the time. Now, you know, going back to even the Wii U, minus Virtual Boy, the Wii U has the worst library. And so even comparing the Switch library to that, I mean, it's apples and oranges. I mean, the Wii U library was terrible. It didn't have a lot of ports, and it had weak support. And so the Switch has already blown that out of the water. It has hundreds of games. I don't know exactly what the count is, but it's a lot. Is there some bad games? Absolutely. Any successful console is going to have a lot of terrible games. I look at the original PlayStation library. Oh my gosh, terrible. PlayStation 2, another one that comes to mind. PlayStation 2 is an amazing console. It also had a lot of terrible games. And so, like any console, you have to weed out the shovelware and the games aren't so great and evaluate it on diversity. And right now, I give the Nintendo Switch a solid B. I'm not in either camp. The Switch library does have room for improvement. There's always going to be those people that are going to say, yeah, but it doesn't have a Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey sequel. And those games are going to take time. You know, those games aren't going to come out every year. I know that Nintendo's working on it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else they're coming out with. Now, bear in mind, so if you're relying on Nintendo to support their console and release AAA titles, honestly, some of the Switch library is going to disappoint you because that's not really, in my opinion, the strength of the Nintendo Switch library. I think it's a very diverse library that has lots of ports from many different consoles and computer, and I think that makes it neat because it's on the go. I think there's a ton to play. There's a lot of great games if you're looking for them. They're not going to be big names. They're going to be names you might have to check it out an indie title, and you probably will like it more than you anticipated. I know that's the case for me. I enjoy looking on the eShop for indie titles for the Nintendo Switch. I'm always finding new games, and I think it's cool. Yes, I think it has area for improvement. I think it does need more AAA Nintendo titles that are going to sell. Nintendo's released a couple recent releases, and you know, as much as I like Yoshi Crafted World, I don't think it's the game that a lot of people are waiting for. They're waiting for the big AAA Nintendo games, and those aren't going to come out every month. They're not going to come out every 6 months. I know that Nintendo has several announcements planned for the year. I look forward to seeing what else they are coming up with, and it's probably going to drop in the fourth quarter, and I look forward to seeing them do several announcements. And so what are you looking for? What do you think about the Nintendo Switch library? Do you think it's not that great? Do you love it? Are you somewhere in between? Are you disappointed? Comment below. I want to know your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. I think it's an 8 out of 10, and I think it has area for improvement, but it's pretty awesome, and I've been very happy with it. Comment below, and I want to thank everybody for the ongoing support of my channel. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. This is the Immortal John Hancock. You take care.